Modern global supply chains rest on layers of structural inputs that are currently shifting under heavy, unmeasured pressures. Many corporate models treat biodiversity loss as an external environmental tragedy, an issue parked outside the scope of core business operations. To manage the resulting risk, we have to define biodiversity as it functions in a commercial context, the total variety of biological life on Earth. This includes the millions of distinct species of plants and animals that populate our landscape. It also extends to the less visible components, the fungi and microorganisms that drive essential chemical processes. These organisms interlock within specific geographies to build functioning, self-regulating ecosystems. Your business depends on these ecosystems to provide services that allow your production lines to remain viable. These biological systems provide the unpriced, foundational infrastructure for all global commerce. Every factory and logistics network currently relies on these unpriced ecological inputs to maintain stability. When these foundational ecosystems disappear, the operational capacity of the businesses that rely on them disappears as well. The first objective of this assessment is to map a company's direct dependencies on these natural systems. The second objective is to examine how a company's own impacts are degrading the very systems required for their future production. This mapping is particularly urgent in high-risk geographic zones, such as the Philippines. New global frameworks are already being established to mandate this type of operational disclosure. The transition from voluntary environmental reporting to expected financial rigor is accelerating. Companies that master their ecosystem data early will be the ones positioned to meet these rising regulatory requirements. In an engineering sense, ecosystem services are the mandatory, unpriced operational inputs that allow a global supply chain to run. This model shows a standard corporate network resting on a foundation grid of distinct biological layers. The first layer provides the clean, filtered water required for both heavy manufacturing and agricultural production. The second layer is crop pollination, a form of agricultural labor provided by the ecosystem at no cost to the producer. The third layer provides local climate regulation, which stabilizes the weather patterns necessary for predictable operations. The fourth layer involves natural pest and disease control, which maintains the health of both crops and human workforces. The fifth layer performs continuous air and soil purification, filtering out industrial byproducts and toxins. The final layer generates the baseline raw materials that form the physical start of the supply chain. Replacing any of these 6 inputs with artificial technology would require investments that could exceed a company's total profit margin. Therefore, the loss of an entire ecosystem functions as the loss of a critical corporate service provider. On a smaller scale, the extinction of a single species can represent the loss of a specific mechanical function within that service. If we remove just one foundational layer from this model, the structural integrity of the entire system changes. The loss of the ecological base triggers an upward ripple, causing the corporate nodes above it to halt production. Broken links in the natural world eventually manifest as broken links in the corporate production line. These ecological dependencies are not distributed evenly across the globe. They are concentrated in specific, high-yield regions. The Philippines is one of only 17 countries designated as megadiverse. Within these islands, the concentration of life is extreme, with more species per square kilometer than almost anywhere else on the planet. This density makes the archipelago a critical global hub for raw ecosystem services. Despite this concentration of biological wealth, the Philippines remains among the most acutely threatened biodiversity hotspots in the world. This ecological infrastructure is being eroded by high rates of deforestation and the destruction of coral reef systems. Coastal stability is further declining due to the loss of mangroves and the drainage of vital wetlands. These issues are compounded by the spread of invasive species and the over-extraction of natural resources. For any company sourcing from this region, these localized threats act as direct multipliers for supply chain risk. Operating in the Philippines without mapping biological dependencies leaves a company exposed to localized ecological collapse. Financial markets are shifting toward pricing in the risks of ecological collapse. This effort is led by the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, or TNFD. This framework establishes a standard for companies to formally report how they depend on and impact biodiversity. The TNFD adoption curve is following the path of the TCFD climate framework, which transitioned from voluntary to mandatory in several jurisdictions. This path indicates a structural realignment of how markets value natural assets. The first stage moves beyond voluntary sustainability reporting used for public relations. It moves into the risk management expectations of institutional investors, eventually becoming a requirement for regulatory disclosure. Assessing nature-related risk is becoming a prerequisite for maintaining long-term market access. Companies and investors active in the Philippines must begin the process of mapping their biodiversity dependencies. Readiness now requires identifying exactly which ecosystems and hidden biological functions directly support your own specific corporate operations. Having this critical data ready before it is demanded by clients or regulators provides a massive, significant operational advantage. Executive boards must be able to answer a fundamental question. Which specific ecosystems does this company rely on to remain solvent? Ignoring these unpriced natural inputs leaves a company's risk management strategy incomplete. Ultimately, the long-term resilience of the corporate balance sheet is inextricably linked to the health of our biosphere.